Tupac Shakur was shot multiple times, and on day 2 of this highly anticipated murder trial against Dwayne Keefe D. Davis, jurors saw exactly what those bullets did to the superstar rapper. He died of gunshot wounds of chest and abdomen. As witnesses took the stand and described the gunshots and what they saw in the moments after, the defense argued that after almost 30 years, the investigation itself may be the prosecution's biggest problem. And we
just suddenly heard a lot of gunfire.
Somewhere between 9 and 15 shots in a series.
Something like that.
That suggests to you that the weapon was a Glock 40. That's correct.
But yesterday was the opening statements. It was day 1 of the trial. It was the beginning of witness testimony. The prosecution alleges that Davis orchestrated the killing of Tupac Shakur, that it was because Shakur and others allegedly beat up his nephew, Orlando Anderson, earlier in the night at the MGM Grand. They plan to use Davis's own alleged statements over the years in media interviews, a memoir, law enforcement interviews, statements that the prosecution claims Davis admitted to his involvement. Now, the defense argues those statements were exaggerations, that you can't believe what Davis said, that there is nothing to corroborate that he was telling the truth about his alleged involvement in what happened with Tupac. With all that in mind, now we go to day 2. So the prosecution began today by calling Dr. Lisa Gavin, a forensic pathologist and medical examiner for Clark County. Now, she wasn't the original doctor who performed Tupac's autopsy. That doctor has since passed away, but she reviewed the records, the photographs, the medical reports from 1996, and she formed her own conclusions about what happened to Tupac Shakur. Notably, we learned that as she began to walk the jury through the autopsy photos, several members of Tupac's family got up and left the courtroom. Not surprising when you consider what's going on the screen. But Dr. Gavin continued that this is what she told the jury about how Tupac died.
After reviewing all of those records, do you have an opinion as to the cause of death of Mr. Shakur?
Yes.
And what is that?
He died of gunshot wounds of chest and abdomen.
And do you have an opinion as to the manner of death?
Yes.
And what is that?
Homicide.
When a medical examiner uses the term homicide, what does that mean?
The simplest form is death at the hands of another. This is the right side of the body up by the chest area. You can see the right axilla or armpit in that region. And then you could see some of the sutures of what they call a thoracotomy incision, where they've cut into the side of the chest. And then just below that, this is an entrance gunshot wound.
And then just below that thoracotomy chest, there appears to be a stitched up area. I can move my mouse too, right there. What is that?
That's a sutured chest tube site.
So he had a tube there to help drain some of what was going on in his body.
Correct, and in the previous one that had all the medical intervention, you could see from the left side there was a similar chest tube on that left side.
From your review, were you able to determine sort of the path of this particular bullet?
Yes.
And what was that?
It entered here in the right lateral aspect of the chest, just below the axilla, the armpit, and then went across the right chest space, went across the right lung, and then ended up coming to rest in what we call the sternal notch. The sternal notch is a location just between where your collarbones kind of meet up towards the center of your chest. So just beneath that, the projectile was recovered.
The nature of that type of wound, what did it physically do to him, his ability to breathe and those types of things?
The injury to the lung would have collapsed the lung and also caused the lung to bleed. And so it was documented within the medical records that he had about 2 liters of blood in his chest cavity when they put in the chest tube to try to save him. And similarly, they ended up removing that lung to try to save him and kind of clamp off the bleeding. And then he already had multiple episodes of not becoming responsive, so he wasn't able to breathe. He was bleeding out in that area from that injury. This is the right lateral aspect of his body, so his right flank and his lateral aspect of his right thigh. And then his backside of his right hand is also within this picture.
The ruler, though, is identifying what?
The ruler is around the right lateral aspect of his thigh, so the right thigh on the lateral side.
And what is that?
And that's an entrance gunshot wound.
And can you tell me the path that that bullet took?
Yes.
And go ahead.
That bullet entered in the lateral aspect of the right thigh and then went upwards into the abdomen and damaged his intestines. They ended up operating there and removed a portion of his intestines, and then during that surgery they recovered another projectile.
Dr. Gavin, as I said, she wasn't the original ME. That was Dr. Jordan, and he has since passed away. Okay, now we go to questioning by the defense. So on cross-examination, defense attorney Michael Sampt pressed her on this, that she was relying on records that were decades old, photos that were taken with Polaroid cameras, a record she didn't keep herself. So to me, this is consistent with the defense's argument, which we heard in an opening statement yesterday, that this whole investigation was sloppy, that it was botched, that it was incomplete, that you're talking about a case almost 30 years old. So trying to raise reasonable doubt, trying to raise questions about the reliability of the prosecution's case, the investigative work. And if jurors are perhaps hesitant about one aspect of the prosecution's case or the investigation, perhaps they will not believe the whole case, the whole theory, the whole narrative. Maybe they'll question it. But the prosecution pushed back on redirect. Take a look.
Your testimony here today revolves really around your review of the record that was laid out 30 years ago.
Yes, that's correct.
And so, fair to say, of course, that keeping records would be very important in your line of work.
Yes.
In the event that in the future, something that you do while you're on vacation somewhere in the Bahamas could be testified to by another doctor.
That's correct.
Now, with regards to the records that you saw here, is it Dr. Jordan? Was there anything missing in your review of those records in terms of record keeping or anything like that?
No, but we only took a few photos at the time of autopsy. At that time, they used Polaroids, or they used film and cameras. And so we had few photos of the body itself. And so consequently, the crime scene analyst photos were helpful for being able to come to determination in addition to the reports.
Man, Mr. Sam suggested, and I just want to make it clear, you're not regurgitating Dr. Jordan's opinions. You've formulated your own opinions as the cause and manner of death.
That is correct.
So as I talk about this initial alleged altercation at the MGM, after this alleged beating at this hotel, police responded to the scene. But the man who was apparently attacked, Orlando Anderson, Keefe D's nephew, seemingly didn't want to cooperate. Sergeant Kenneth Rios was one of the officers who responded that night. Here's what he told the jury about his interaction with Anderson.
I asked him first if he needed medical assistance, and he refused. He said he was fine. I then asked him what happened, and he told me basically that a couple of guys that he didn't know jumped him. And once again, I asked him if he needed medical. He said no. I asked if he wanted to file a report, and he said no.
At that point, was he released and free to go on his way?
Yes, he was.
Later on that evening, did you learn about a shooting involving Tupac Shakur?
Yes, I did.
And then were you asked to then draft a report as to what your interaction was with Mr. Anderson?
Yes, I was.
And at that time, what name did you remember for Mr. Anderson?
It was Orlando. I remember his first name.
Is it anything unusual that when a victim gets attacked and doesn't want to press charges or write a report, for you not to have written a report that night?
No, it's not. Basically, if you don't have a victim, you don't have a crime, as we put it, which isn't necessarily true. You always have a crime. But if you don't have a victim, the chances of prosecution, you won't get any information, and so we don't take a report if the victim refuses.
And so the state had asked you a question specifically as to when you wrote your report. You wrote it after, like after you got off of this particular shift? Is that when you wrote your report?
I don't recall when I wrote it, but I'm sure that my officer's report would reflect that time, but I know I didn't write it immediately after.
All right. And in terms of your knowledge that Tupac Shakur had just been shot, your testimony to the jury is that you had understood at that point that potentially a person by the name of Orlando may have been something to do with that particular case.
I don't recall if that was the reason why I wrote the report, if that's what you're asking.
Yeah, because I'm a little curious. Like, how do you? I mean, you know, there's a shooting of Tupac Shakur. How do you? Is it because you heard that there's a shooting up at Tupac Shakur? They go, wait a minute, there was an incident that occurred with Tupac on property. Is that how we get to this point?
Back then, I don't recall if that was the process that I went through to make the report. I don't believe so. I believe that there was some other officers that probably told me and suggested that I write a report because of his possible involvement.
Right. So news goes out throughout the valley. Tupac has been shot, and then you're advised, hey, there was something happening here with Tupac. Just capture whatever it is that you remember. Right.
I don't recall that happening that way, but for most intents purposes.
Right. Now, in terms of your report and you writing it, you're still. I mean, you're still on property when you hear that this incident had occurred with Tupac Shakur.
I don't recall where I was at the time.
Okay. Would you have ever called back to the MD and say, hey, capture more video of, you know, this particular incident and the guy with the Merino jersey, you know, the night of the shooting to help them with whatever investigation could be out there? Did you do that?
Not that I recall, no.
Do you know of anyone else among the 3 officers that were there or any other officers would have done something like that?
I have no idea.
Okay. Maybe they're all Bears fans and that's the reason why they didn't do that.
It could be.
Yep.
Now, the prosecution called the man who was working security at the Maxim Hotel that night. It was right at the corner of Flamingo and Koval. William Heidemeyer. He was on the 3rd floor of the parking garage when he apparently heard something that stopped him cold. Listen to this.
2 Metro officers with me, and we were looking for stolen vehicles. There were 5 or 6 Dodge Caravans that were stolen out of our parking garage that night.
And where were you located when something unusual did happen?
Well, I was on the ramp of the 3rd floor of the parking garage on the southeast side of the property.
And while you were there, describe what you hear.
Well, the 2 officers, another security officer and I were standing around one Dodge Caravan, and we just suddenly heard a lot of gunfire. And we ran to the barrier wall that was overlooking Koval Boulevard, not Koval, Flamingo Boulevard, and that's when I witnessed what I saw.
So you hear a bunch of shots. Do you have any idea how many you heard?
It sounded like a lot.
1 volley, 2 volleys?
3 volleys.
3 volleys.
Yes.
You heard. And when you say a lot, I mean, to some people, can you
It
put
was-
any sort of number on it?
I had 3 to 4, maybe even 5 each volley. It was a series of pops,
Somewhere between 9 and 15 shots in a series.
something like that.
He then testifies about the man he claims he saw holding a gun. And the defense tried to make an objection as to speculation, but you'll see what happens.
I was armed, so I was leaning over the retaining wall to see what I could see.
And when you look over the wall, what do you see?
I see a line of vehicles in the left straight lane on Flamingo heading east, and there's several vehicles. There was a white Dodge Stratus at the front, a black BMW behind it, another dark car, and I believe another car, and then there was a white Chevy Suburban behind that, and several more cars.
Do you see anybody outside of those vehicles?
Yeah, there were a number of people standing outside of the vehicles in the traffic lanes.
And do you see any of them armed?
One gentleman was armed, one black male adult, very young, well-dressed. He was wearing a very bright white 3/4 sleeve shirt, black pants, and a black dress vest.
And at the time that you see him, is he firing his weapon?
No, he's not, but he does have the weapon in his hand. It was an automatic weapon, automatic pistol.
semi-automatic pistol?
Yes.
And is he holding it down? Is he pointing it in a direction?
He wasn't pointing in any direction. It was kind of just off to his side.
What do you see this caravan of cars do?
Well, I looked back because the Metro officers jumped in their cars to pursue. And then when I turned around, everyone was back in their cars again. And they made a U-turn heading west on Flamingo towards Las Vegas Boulevard.
All of the cars in the caravan?
Yes.
And so you see them make a U-turn at Koval and head back towards Las Vegas Boulevard.
Correct.
And those vehicles, you saw the two Metro officers you were with jump in their vehicle to give chase to that caravan.
Correct.
At the time that you're out there and you see somebody with a gun, you've just heard shots fired, is it the conclusion you originally drew that that person was your suspect?
Yes. Yeah. That's what I deduced at the time.
And based upon the officers following that caravan, that's a reasonable assumption that they deduced that as well.
Right. They asked me what direction they were going. They rolled down their windows and were asking me what direction everybody went, and so I pointed to make a right and head towards Las Vegas Boulevard.
And those officers then went after the caravan.
Correct.
Objection as to speculation.
What's your response?
Well, he watched them do it.
He didn't.
Over.
Did he testify to that? Did you watch
Lay
the
some more
officers?
foundation.
Did you watch the officers go after that caravan?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
On cross-examination, the defense pointed out that Heidmeyer didn't write a report that night, that he handed it off to someone else, and they highlighted that he didn't actually see the shooting happen or anyone firing a weapon. He only heard the gunfire and saw a man with a gun after the fact.
Now, you were investigating at that particular time stolen vehicles out of that garage. Did you write a report on your own with regards to what you were doing that night with the stolen vehicles? And
Actually, no. I turned that report over to my other co-officers at the security because I was tied up with this incident.
Okay. I'm going to zoom in a little bit better for you here, sir, if I could. Going back again. That's hopefully more helpful. All right. So when you said that you looked over and you saw, can you explain for us again sort of where the vehicles were that you saw?
Well, the vehicles were on Flamingo heading east, and they were in, you have a left turn lane, 2 forward lanes, and a right turn lane, and the vehicles were in the farthest left center lane.
Farthest left center lane.
Correct.
Meaning that they were intending on going forward.
Correct.
They're not making that left.
No, but they ended up making a U-turn.
Sure, and once again, for our edification, this is 30 years ago, right? So you've got 3 lanes going directly east, and is that a yes?
Yes,
Okay.
I'm sorry.
And then you have, is it 2 lanes that are actually turn lanes to turn onto Koval, or is it just
Actually, I
one?
believe it was 2 lanes, so it would be from the facing east, it would have been the 3rd lane that they were in. There's 2 turn lanes, 2 straight lanes, and then a right turn lane.
All right, and then with regards to the vehicles themselves, your testimony was that there was a white van of some sort, or maybe vehicle in front of the black BMW.
Yeah, it was a white Dodge Stratus.
I see. Is that a van? No, that's a
No,
car.
it's a 2-door sedan.
Okay. And then behind it is the BMW,
Yes.
and then behind it are multiple cars leading back.
Yes.
And your testimony was that you had identified a Lex. Is it a Lexus behind it?
I think it was a Lexus, I believe so.
And then another vehicle, and then a white Chevy, and then it just kept going all the way down.
Correct.
So even though we're identifying these vehicles, you don't know how many vehicles were in the procession or the.
It was several. I didn't count them at the time, but it was a good 10 vehicles.
Okay. And all those vehicles are now making a U-turn and heading back towards Las Vegas Boulevard.
Correct.
You don't see the actual shots being, someone actually pointing a gun at something and shooting something.
No, I did not.
You just heard it.
Yes.
The individual that you had identified as the person with the gun,
Yes.
did you see that individual shoot his weapon?
No.
And the prosecution called Michael Ingram, an investigator for MGM Resorts, to authenticate the surveillance footage from the night of this alleged beating. The video, which was captured on VHS tapes that were reused and degraded over time, showed or seemingly showed the confrontation between Tupac's entourage and Orlando Anderson in the elevator core of the MGM ground. Now, Ingram walked the jury through that footage, showing Anderson allegedly being attacked and then seemingly fleeing through the casino floor towards the lion entrance. On cross-examination, the defense pressed Ingram on what he didn't know. He wasn't working at MGM in 1996. He didn't know if security reports were written. He couldn't verify the date and timestamps on the video beyond what was already recorded. The video itself was very grainy. No one could definitively identify anyone in it, but it seemingly established one very important thing, that this attack happened, and it happened on camera. But for the prosecution, they are hoping that in the minds of the jury, it established one very important thing, that a beating happened and it happened on camera. And that's all we have. Thank you so much for joining us. And as always, please subscribe on YouTube.